Hey everyone, my name is Riley, for those of you that don't know me, and I've been wanting to make this video for a long time, but I wanted to make sure I was in a good place before I made it, and here it is, finally. I'm going to be talking about au pairing in Australia, the truth about it all, and you're going to be hearing it all from me. The reason I say you're just going to be hearing it from me is because I really wanted to get lots of different au pairs and their experiences and format it together kind of like a little documentary, but I could not find even one au pair besides myself who was willing to talk about the truth of au pairing. I made multiple posts in Facebook groups asking for people au pairs to give their experiences and be interviewed, and it was impossible. I couldn't find anyone to share their experiences, and sometimes even when I made these posts, I had administrators of the group contacting me and asking why I'm making this video, what's the point of it, and sometimes they threw me out of the groups. I actually got thrown out of, I think, like 3 or 4 au pair Facebook groups for just trying to make a video about the truth of the matter. With all of that being said, let's go ahead and start talking about au pairing. I'm first going to talk about my personal experiences, and then I made a little survey and I got about, I think, 200 responses from au pairs, so I'll talk about my survey results so you can hear, because obviously my experience is not going to be the same as everyone else's. But since I couldn't find anyone else to help me with this video, it's mostly going to be my experiences. I decided to be an au pair because I wanted to spend time abroad. I spent 15 months in Australia and I worked for 4 host families. I never thought I'd work for so many host families, and the first one I found was on a website, a free website called Au Pair World. I didn't really think I wanted to be an au pair when I came to Australia. I am 29 and I kind of thought it may be a little isolating and I may not have a lot of independence living with a family, but I could not find any other type of work before I left, and I didn't feel comfortable going over to Australia and not having a job or a place to live, and I didn't have a lot of savings, so I thought this would be a safe bet. Let's be an au pair. I have a teaching background. I do love children, so I thought it'll be good. It'll be great to have a family that can show me around. But unfortunately, it was not at all what I thought it was going to be. The first family I was with, I corresponded with them. I think we started talking in April, and I didn't come over to Australia until August. So I was talking to them quite a bit beforehand, and I think we video chatted maybe 2 or 3 times, so I thought I really got a good feeling for the family. But when I showed up, you know, lots of things were different than what they portrayed on their profile, and I think I had asked them every single question because I had heard about bad experiences for au pairs, so I wanted to ask them everything. But even with all of that, and even talking to them for that was 4 months ahead of time, it still didn't prepare me for what I was about to encounter. The house was great. No complaints about the house. This family was very wealthy. They were in a great location, public transport everywhere, but the children's behavior was just jaw-dropping, and I noticed it from the moment I arrived, and I was like, oh my God, what have I gotten myself into? I don't think I need to go exactly into about all the things the kids did, but there wasn't any discipline going on, and I think these kids were very used to having an au pair around, the parents were very used to having an au pair around, so a lot of the responsibilities and discipline tried to fall on the au pair. And I tried to talk to the family a few times about the issues I was having, and they just said, oh, give it more time, they'll get better. I mean, these kids, they were smacking me when I was trying to help them put their clothes on. And every time, they had 5 children, so I was making 5 lunches in the morning, and every time I made their lunches, they would, throw out the items and say that they hated them, and they had lots of different things that were unpaid work, but it was part of being in the home. Like they had unpaid babysitting, which was supposed to be if there was a night the parents wanted to go out and I was going to stay in, it was, prearranged that I was going to stay in weeks in advance. I would just be the adult in the home, but all the kids would be in bed, so I wouldn't really be working, so I wouldn't get any extra pay. And at first I was just like, yeah, that's fine if I'm just, chilling, watching Netflix. I don't see that being a problem. But of course, it never became that. And it was always last minute asking me to babysit on a Saturday night. And I felt like kind of trapped, like I couldn't say, oh, actually I was planning on going to an event, because I thought, I'm in their home. I don't want to say no, because for one, I want them to like me, and for two, I don't want them to kick me out. And that's the biggest problem right there. Au pairs are taken advantage of because they live with the family and everything that they have comes from the family. So it's very easy to do extra favors, do extra cleaning, because what's your choice? You don't have a choice, really. Also, with the unpaid babysitting, the kids would never actually be in bed. I was always putting all 5 to bed. I mean, the two oldest were old enough, but even they just have to fight me to go to bed. So that was still something that I had to deal with, and time that I wasn't getting paid. Another thing I dealt with was they gave me a schedule, which I really did like, because some families didn't give me a schedule, but they would never come home on time. And I remember one time, it was like one of my first weeks in Melbourne, and I really wanted to go to this transgender support group to meet other trans people. And they came home, and I was looking forward to this group for so long, because I was very lonely and I was isolated in this house and quite miserable. And I remember I was like, gonna go to this meeting, and the family ended up being 2 hours late after my shift, and I missed the meeting, and I was so upset, because this was like my one thing I wanted to do, and I had to miss it because they were late. Eventually, these things and so many other things I couldn't take anymore. I was crying in tears every day, just mostly because of the children's behavior. And every time I was off my shift, I was straight into my room, because I did not like to be around the kids. I did not like to be around the parents. They were having marital problems. Sometimes the mom wouldn't come to dinner, and it was just kind of awkward. And, that's their own business, so I kind of like to spend a bit of time by myself in the evenings, and it was so isolating. I didn't know anyone. So after 9 weeks with that family, I decided to quit, because I did not come to Australia to deal with children smacking me and with being miserable. I came to learn about myself and have a good experience. Luckily, I found another family who literally took me in the next day, and they were a lot better. I still had some issues with the kids' behavior, but over time I kind of just realized that was just something I probably was going to have to put up with. But they were really great, and it became more of a positive experience for me. I was with 2 other host families. After that, I was with one in Brisbane, and I was with one in Perth. And all of these were short-term assignments. They were in between 2 to 3 months. One of them was only 1 month. And so I think part of it is that I didn't get to really bond with the family, so that might be why I had such a negative experience. But every single family, I was counting down the days. And I don't know if that was just, maybe I'm not au pair material. Like I said, I love children, but maybe I'm just not meant to be an au pair. But it was just awful. And after the 4th family, they were so awful that I decided I would never, ever do this to myself again. I go into what happened with me with my last family in Perth in another video on my page, but just to kind of summarize that, I have never seen such terrible, misbehaving children, and I've never seen such just terrible parents. Really, really sad. And I've never raised kids, so I don't know what it's like to be a parent. I'm sure it's very difficult. But if you're going to bring someone from another country into your home and pay them, you need to have set standards and treat them like an adult. They gave me a curfew. They would, anytime they wanted to communicate with me, they would just send me a text message, even if it was something that they were unhappy about. They had me working over 45 hours per week when they told me it would be 30. And the only way I knew this was I actually started tracking it because I knew it was over the limit. Sometimes I would wake up in the morning and, well, I wouldn't wake up. All the time the kids would come in and out of my room. And, you know, I'd have to get out of bed, 6 in the morning, get them out. And this was on my day off. And when I did finally get up and have some breakfast, the kids were always glued in front of the TV, but no one was there to take care of them. And a lot of times the youngest boy had soiled his pants, so I wasn't gonna just leave him like that, and I did end up changing him and doing things like getting them food and, you know, little things, because I wasn't gonna just leave them like that. But again, that's not part of my job, and was just kind of, I don't know if it was expected or not. I don't even know if they knew I did it. So there were a lot of issues, and I did spend a lot of time in my room, and I think that in my time off, obviously, I think that upset the family because they didn't feel like I wanted to be a part of them. But again, just like my first family, I was so miserable. I was crying a lot that when I was done with my shift, I needed peace of mind, quiet. And a lot of times I would be on the phone with my partner, or I would be talking to my family, or sometimes working on YouTube videos, just things that made me happy. And I didn't want to spend extra time with the family because, to be honest, I didn't like them. And also, I would end up having to do extra things if I did hang out with them. But I learned from the first family that if I was having an issue, I needed to just tell them right away and not keep it hidden, because it's really hard to put on a happy face when you're uncomfortable, and not only do you work there, but you live there. So I told the mom that I wanted to have a talk about how many hours I was working and the pay I was being given, because it wasn't what I thought we agreed to. And I didn't even bring up the discipline or working the unpaid hours or any of that. And just for the fact that I asked her to have a conversation, we never had the conversation. She texted me while I was out one day and she fired me. And I was asked to come back to the house immediately, pack my bags, and I was gone. And it was quite upsetting, but after I left, I felt this like entire burden come off my shoulders, and I was only going to be with them another 5 days before I was off to Asia, but I was so happy that they fired me. I know that sounds crazy, but I was so happy that I was able to leave. It was the best blessing in disguise. So I'm going to talk about some of the biggest problems that I found in my experiences and in other experiences of au pairs that I've met, and some from the survey that I've read. The first thing is, how much does an au pair get paid? In lots of Facebook groups, there's always host families asking how much do we pay our au pair, and the problem is there's no set rate. I have seen that in Australia currently they are normally paid in between $200 to $250 a week. And of course that is including your room and board. So, but there's no set rate. There's not an hourly rate, and anytime, I've had families say, oh, if you work extra hours, we'll pay you this much an hour, and that could just be like $10 per hour, and that's extremely low for pay rates in Australia. Room and board, that has been an issue with me because, for one, most of the rooms I've had don't have locks, so kids will come in and out as they please. There's not a lot of privacy, and a lot of times your room will be next to a child's room. I have a hard time sleeping, so if you're going to be an au pair, get some earplugs. Definitely get some earplugs. But A lot of times it's a shared bathroom with the kids, and that's fine, but a lot of times that I've dealt with, the bathrooms were quite disgusting. Toilets were covered in pee, there's hair all over the sink. You know, it's a kid's bathroom, so you have to be aware that you're going to be sharing with multiple children. I think I have a bigger problem with the board because they would say that, of course, you know, free range of the fridge and the pantry, and out of all 4 families I lived with, I hardly ever found lots of things in there. One family I worked for, they would usually have a liter of milk and a half a loaf of bread in the fridge at one time. They bought their food by meal, so not only, I'm not a picky eater, but there just wasn't much there. And I found myself, especially on my days off, I would always just go out to eat. I would try to pack a lunch, but there was just such little there out of all the families that I usually just spent my money on eating out, and which is great, but that takes care of your $200 to $250 a week pretty quickly if you're eating out often. I've had people tell me that they have different diets, and I've even read in one of my au pair manuals, if you're a vegetarian or if you're vegan or you're gluten-free, the family will not take care of that, and you're expected to provide the extra items with your pocket money. Being an au pair is very isolating and lonely. The only good thing is, especially in big cities, there are au pair Facebook pages, and there's a great community. There's always someone posting saying, hey, I'm new here, or hey, we're gonna have a group of us go to the park later today, who wants to join? Everyone's really welcoming. Most of the hours I worked were from 7 to like 9:30 in the morning, and then again from 3 to maybe 7 or 8 at night. And those are kind of strange hours because you have a good like 5-hour chunk during the day, which kind of makes you think, oh, I have so much time, I can go explore. But at least in Melbourne, by the time you get to the city, walk around a bit, it's almost time to go back and pick up the kids. And I also found it quite odd because when I started dating someone, I realized that most people are getting off work at 5 o'clock, and I wasn't getting off work till 8. So if I wanted to do anything on the weekdays during the evening, it was nearly impossible, especially when the parents had you work later than you're intended to. I also, in my first family, worked a lot on weekends, and that made it even more isolating because then I didn't even have my weekends free, and I just had 2 random weekdays off, and no one ever had time off then. So I found I just spent a lot of time by myself. Not only are you taking care of kids, but you're going to probably be doing an amount of cooking for the family and cleaning. And this is supposed to just be, I mean, there's like rules about this. Rules. It's supposed to just be minimal. Minimal cleaning. Maybe you're picking up the kids' toys with the kids, and maybe you're putting their breakfast dishes in the dishwasher, or you're making their lunches. You should not be cooking the family's meals every single day. You shouldn't be doing the dishes afterwards. That was the thing with my first family. I would cook the family's meal, and then afterwards I was told that part of the duties, even though I was off, was to help with the dishes. And with 5 children, 2 parents and myself, it's quite a few dishes. And then I was doing all of their washing, and I was packing all of the kids' lunches, and again, doing a lot of these things off duty. Another thing I had to do was I was sometimes asked to be on call, and an experience I read in my survey was that someone was asked to, if they didn't work a certain number of hours during that week because the family didn't need them, those were then going to be added on to another week. And that's not really cool, because if you don't need someone that much one week, you should still pay them the same, I think, because they were prepared to work that much. And just kind of, one thing you need to realize is the location. One of the families I lived with, they did not live near a train, so it was kind of just like a village. And there was a bus, but until I got there, I didn't realize that the bus only picked up at 7 a.m. or 7 p.m. So if I wanted to get into the city, I had to follow one of those times, and to get into the city it took about an hour. That didn't even include the bus ride. And a lot of times families will say, you'll have use of our car, but I never was given use of any cars. There aren't really contracts, so even if you're with an agency, I think people can break contracts pretty easily. So sometimes families will say, we don't need you anymore, we don't need the care, we can't afford it, and you'll be asked to leave. And it's really scary when you don't have any family or any friends in the area, and you just kind of feel like you're not wanted, and you don't even know where you're supposed to go. Let alone if you're the one that's miserable and you want to leave but you feel trapped. I asked people if they would recommend this experience and seek it out in the future, and it was pretty 50-50. Obviously, I've talked really negative about experiences, but I have heard wonderful stories, and I know there's wonderful families out there. So this is not going to be true for everyone. Just try to do your research and be aware of what could happen and know your rights. I meet so many girls that just let these families take advantage of them because they are nice, and they first say, oh, well, I don't mind doing the extra cleaning, I don't mind doing the extra hours, and then eventually the family just gets used to it, and they're doing it all the time, and the girl's trapped. And I'm the type of person that I don't let people walk all over me, so maybe this is why this experience wasn't for me. And you have to realize that these families are getting such a deal on cheap childcare that you're providing, that if you're unhappy in a family, you can find another family so quickly, especially if you're in a big city. This is why au pairing is so popular, because families are getting a good deal from your child care. Not only are you taking care of their kids, picking them up, dropping them off, making their lunches, cooking for the family, cleaning for the family, doing their washing. They're doing it because they have a lot of money, and they're not giving any of it to you, and they're saving so much more so they can go on these nice vacations, and you're not making anything. So finally, after I gave up with the au pairing, I finally did something else while I was in Australia, and it made me so much happier. I ended up house sitting, which was still free room, not free board, but the amount of money I was making ended up letting me save so much more, even though I was paying for my food. But I just did a bunch of odd jobs for people. I actually did a bit of babysitting, but it was so much better because I could go and then leave when it was the end of the day. There were set hours, set pay rate, and I was making it hourly, so if the mom or the dad was late, I was paid extra. I did some painting, I did some gardening for families, I did cleaning, I did so many different jobs, and I really, really liked that because I could see different people, and it was completely flexible, and I did it when I wanted to. I also did a bit of working off HelpX, which you can do, it's all across the world, and you live with, it could be a couple, you live with a family, and you do certain tasks for them. It's about 20 to 25 hours per week, and you get your free room and board, and then you do tasks that may be, painting for them. I did some ceiling repairs, I did some cleaning, I did some gardening for a woman, and I had my own space off of the house, complete independence. My partner was able to come over, which never happened when I was au pairing, and that was just so much better for me. So I think in conclusion to all of this, au pairing can be great, but it can also be really, really bad. And not a lot of people will tell you the bad side, and they won't tell you what you really deserve. And you deserve a lot. You are a human being from another country in a vulnerable position, and you deserve to be paid for what you work and everything. And I just hope everyone has a positive experience if they do decide to au pair. And if you ever have questions or want to talk to me about what you're dealing with, please send me a message. Love to talk to you about this. If you have similar experiences to me, send me a message. If you have different ones and think I'm wrong, send me a message as well. I'd love to hear from you. Thank you so much for listening. I know this was long. I had a lot to get off my chest. But yes, again, thank you for watching. and I'll catch y'all later. Bye.